And welcome to the Horse Barn Management Show. And I'm Sherry Grunska, and this is put on by Pro Barn Management and myself. And this is our Monday night live Q&A show. And if you're on and you're watching, let us know where you're from. We've been so fortunate to even have people out of this country from Canada and even Australia watch us. So let us know where you're from. So tonight we're going to talk. I've had so many questions come in, and I want to let you know ahead of time that if I understand how sensitive sensitive it is if you are a barn owner or a barn manager and you have a question about an issue you're having at your barn, and you don't really want to say the name of the barn, you don't even want to give your name. I get that sometimes, totally, because you have a business to run and you kind of want to keep it confidential. If you have a situation like that, but you want me to talk about a certain subject, email me through probarnmanagement.com. Let me know, and I will keep it confidential. I won't mention your name at all, because I do understand it's real sensitive, especially when you have clients. And if there's an issue with a client and you're not sure how to deal with that, you don't want it to all of a sudden be broadcast all over and everybody knows exactly what barn you are and who you're talking about. So just to let you know that, if you have a question tonight, type it in, and my friend Sherry will let me know that there's a question, and I will do my best to answer it. And again, this show is here for you to ask and for us to talk about anything that you want to talk about. It's your horse business. I'm just going to give you things to think about, the pros and cons, and share my experiences from having our business for 16 years and the mistakes we made and the things that we felt we did right. And I want to be really honest with you. So, this show is for you, and ask any questions you have. And I want to tell you right now, I'm going to tell you right away, the reason I started this is because I wrote this book, a step-by-step guide to starting and running a successful horse boarding business, like 3 years ago now. It's hit #1 a couple times on Amazon. And if you are going to build a barn, buy an existing horse business, or you just have questions, you don't know how to set up your financials, all of it, even special services, please check this book out. I guarantee you it's going to talk about a lot of stuff that maybe you haven't even thought of. And it's a big book. A lot of the college equine programs are using it now, and it definitely, I think you'll find it is worth purchasing and to read through. And also, before we get started, okay, I got to do this. Christmas is coming. If you're looking for a gift to give for the horse lover, for yourself, for your horse trainer, for your barn manager, check out my daily devotional. It's called Caring for Horses with a Servant's Heart. It's 365 stories about life on a horse farm and how I saw God through all of it. And it's very transparent. I tell you about the fun things, the hard things, the difficult, the really cool fun stories about horses, and even some things that might choke you up a little bit. But I guarantee you at the end of each page you'll be encouraged. There's a Bible verse at the bottom, and it's a great gift that will continue giving the entire year. And I guarantee you, you won't be able to stop at just one page. You'll want to go on to the next story. So check it out. It's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble. So there's that. And I'm going to jump right in. And Sherry, let me know if there's anything going on. Okay. Tonight is kind of an open night of all different types of questions. We're going to just shoot into it. And it's really anything you want to talk about. And I got so many questions this week, so I want to talk about them. And the first one came, it says, "Hi Sherry, thank you for taking my question. I have a boarder who owns a thoroughbred who is the horse is a very nervous horse and is often hot when she is riding the horse. She wants me to start giving the horse a medication like ACE a couple of hours before she comes out so that she can ride the horse easier. The horse is young and needs to be worked 4 to 5 days a week, and she's only able to come out about 1 day a week. The horse is not with a trainer. I don't feel comfortable giving this medication, but she has assured me that it is safe. This is not a vet prescribed med, and I am new to boarding other people's horses, and I have a brand new business, and I'm not sure how to handle this. Can you please give me your thoughts on this? Thank you. This is a great question, and it's so important. So, okay, first of all, I'm going to give you a couple examples of what happened to me through the years, and share those experiences and what I've learned through my mistakes. When we first opened, I had someone who wanted me to give their horse Butte for quite a long period of time, longer than what is ever given. And I felt uncomfortable doing that. I did for a while, and then I started talking to people and eventually consulted with equine professionals and realized that I was liable also if something happened to the horse. And I had to finally say no, I wasn't going to do that. And that was my first experience with learning that something had to be vet prescribed. And you know, it was to take the liability off me as the person giving the medicine. So that I had to grow and learn what I would say yes to and what I would say no to. I've been asked to give steroids, asked to give lots of other different medicines. I personally will not give a med without it being vet prescribed, and me and the horse owner and everybody is in agreement with that because of the liability risk if the horse were to all of a sudden get sick or die, worst case scenario on that. So as far as your situation, you're the barn owner, you have this horse that's kind of hot, and she wants to give something to the horse to kind of mellow him out, you know, sedate him a little bit because he is too hot for her. I'll be honest with you, I wouldn't want a boarder like that at my barn. If they have to give the horse meds to sedate the horse so she can ride the horse, that is a safety issue. I would not want that horse on my property with her as the owner. If the horse is that hot, then she should have the horse in full-time training to work out some of that. Maybe it's too much horse for her. But for you to give some kind of med to the horse just to kind of mellow him out is really not the way to go. And I personally would not do that. There's a great liability in it. So I would say no, don't do it. You know, you have to decide what you can do at your barn and not. But if you're so fearful about losing a boarder because of something like that, then they've actually got control of you and you're not running your business the way it should be run. So no boarder is worth that, the liability risk. It's just not worth it. So for me, I would never do that. I would say no, and I would be very, very careful. And you know, if that person leaves, then you'll find the right person. They always come, and the right person will come that loves how you do things, but it's just not worth the risk. Okay. And if you have any questions about medications or situations like that, it's really kind of common. I hear about it a lot. There's a lot of barn managers out there that give, I've seen people give shots. I've seen trainers give shots and for different issues with horses. And steroids, to me, is one of the ones that you really have to be careful with, because as you're low dosing, as the horse is kind of been on it and you kind of make the dose smaller every day, it's one of those meds that you can't just stop. You can't just make them, you know, you can't have a mistake. You can't give it to the wrong horse. You really have to do it right. And so I always make sure that when I'm giving anything like that, that it is vet prescribed and it's just not something on a whim that the horse owner wants. There are a lot of over-the-counter medicines, I should say. Some of them will calm a horse down a little. I don't mind if they put that in their supplements and they want to give that. That is perfectly fine. But if you're giving something like ACE, that is vet prescribed, and that's a completely different situation. But for, I think they have calm mare or other things for horses to kind of mellow them out a little bit. If they're over the counter, it's a whole different thing. And if the owner wants you to give it and you're giving it with the supplements, that's different. But if you're giving a prescription medicine, you really want to be careful with that and just make sure that it is vet prescribed. You really want to cover yourself at all times on that. Okay. Okay. This is the next question we have. Hi Sherry, we own a small boarding stable with 10 horses. It's a wonderful group of people who come out to see their horses, and we seem to get along very well. I have run into an issue and I'm not sure how to deal with it. I had to raise our board due to the high cost of everything, hay, fuel, etc. And now 2 of the ladies have seemed to form an attitude and come to me and told me that I need to find a new hay supplier because I'm being ripped off. I have checked around and all the hay suppliers have raised their rates. Our board rates are relatively lower than most places around us, but they are starting to make me feel uncomfortable, like they are not getting their money's worth for board. I do not have a strong personality, so it is stressing me out. How do I make them see that what they are paying for board is a very fair price? They are only looking at the hay and not everything else it takes to run our stable. That is a great question. So, the truth of the matter is most boarders are only going to see the hay, and if you're including grain, turnout, cleaning stalls, bedding, those are the costs they're going to see. They're not going to see your fuel prices, the electric. They're not going to see if you have a water bill, your insurance, your business insurance, your employees you're paying, all these other things that go into it. And if you are also paying yourself, or like us, we run this full time, I have medical insurance, I have to pay for medical bills, I have our cars, our vehicles, our tractors, our equipment, all that has to be kept up, repaired, and it's all insured. They will not see all that, and so they don't realize that when they're paying to be at a stable, there's a lot more to it than just the hay. And it is true the hay prices went up this year, and a lot of it was because the fuel prices have skyrocketed also. We had a great summer growing hay, but fuel is expensive and you got to run these tractors to get the hay off the field. So you can do your best to explain, but ultimately at the end of the day, some people just don't get it. And I know this is going to sound a little bit short, and I don't mean to sound harsh, but sometimes you just have to let people go that just don't get it. I mean, they want everything on the cheap. And, sometimes those are the same people that go and spend all this money on all this other stuff. It's the fun stuff they want to spend the money on. But they don't understand that in order to have good care for their horse, you have to have all this other stuff work together, to make everything, work. You have to have the paddocks cleaned. If you have snow, the snow has to be removed. If you have ice, you have to have it covered so that the horses can go back outside. There's a lot of maintenance all year round. Things get broken, horses are hard on stuff. And if they don't understand that it's not like it was in 1980 where you could board a horse for $100. Those days are gone. It's very expensive. And, if you want the cheap end, if they want the cheap end of it, then they can go find a field and I'm sure put their horse out there and not pay hardly anything. But if they want a boarding stable where you have other things, amenities, and a nicer riding arena, that arena has to be maintained, sand has to be added every couple of years. There's a lot of different things people do to maintain all this stuff. It costs money. If they're making you feel bad, I would say to you right now, toughen up and don't let them do that, and you're going to have to move forward. And if it means asking them to leave because they're complaining or causing problems, then so be it, because you are worth more than that. You deserve better than that, and it's important to know your value and what you do every day for the care of the horses, and they might just need to move down the road. So Just a thought. Anyways, anything going on there? Okay. Okay, so I got another one here. This is about farrier issues. The boarders at my stable can use whatever farrier they choose. I believe it is their horse, so they can pick their farrier. And I've run into a problem with a farrier and a boarder's horse. This person wanted to be kept confidential, and I can see why after I had read it online. I have a horse that is constantly lame. I believe this mare has, oh, would you shut the door? Sorry, we're in my office and I forgot to shut the door. I have a horse that is boarded at my barn, is constantly lame. I'm starting to really believe it's because this particular farrier that they use is trimming the feet too short, and I believe the horse's feet are thin-soled. Every single time that the horse gets trimmed, he's sore for a few weeks, and now the horse owner wants me to start giving meds every single time the farrier comes out. And I've talked to, it says here, the second part of the problem is that the owner of the horse won't have the feet x-rayed to see what is going on, and she won't have another farrier look at the trim job of the first farrier. She has also decided that she wants me to give the horse bute for a week or two each time the horse gets trimmed to get the horse through the soreness. I feel like this is all crazy and a vicious cycle. I am looking for advice on what direction to go on this, and what would you do? I have asked around, but no barn owners in my area have had this severe of a problem with a horse and tender feet. Any advice is greatly welcome. Thank you. So, okay. There's a lot going on here, and I hope this doesn't happen to you, but it has happened to me. You know, there's a lot of great farriers out there. We have wonderful farriers that come to our barn, but I'll be honest with you, in 16 years of boarding horses, I have seen a farrier or two that maybe shouldn't be trimming feet. They trimmed the feet too short, maybe made the angles too sharp too quickly, whatever the situation was. But depending on the horse and the thickness of their soles, some horses definitely are more tender-footed than others. For example, we have a paint horse. My horse, he definitely has tender feet, so my farrier knows to keep his feet a little bit longer on the inside, so that after he's trimmed, he's not sore, and that way I can keep him barefoot. But we had to learn that, and it was important to find out exactly what was happening with his feet. I don't believe keeping the same farrier and having the same issue always happen every 6 or 8 weeks and then buting the horse for another week is fixing the problem. I think in the long term it's going to make it worse, because the horse is constantly sore down there on his feet, plus giving him all that bute all the time isn't a good idea. It's hard as a barn owner because you're going to see things that you find frustrating. I have seen it many times where a farrier has done something and then the horse isn't walking right. Thank goodness not lately, but years ago. And the horse owner is in tears because their horse is now sore, or they have to put shoes on the horse with pads. I've seen the whole gamut of it. And as a barn owner, you know, it does affect your job, because now if this horse is really tender-footed, he could be in a stall. They may ask you to put more bedding in there so that the horse can get, you know, some cushioning under his feet. There's a lot of ways it can go. I personally, if I found a situation like that, I would be talking to the horse owner and having a real heart-to-heart with them and telling them honestly that this is a vicious cycle, that it's not healthy to be cutting the horse's feet like this. If there's something wrong, I would probably strongly encourage them to get x-rays of the feet to find out exactly what's happening in the feet, that every single time they get trimmed, the horse can hardly walk. And you know, the thing is, you do that long enough and the horse is growing, they're going to have problems down the road. You're in a really tough situation, but it's your barn and you have every right to say something, especially when it involves you and now you're giving medicine. The horse could be on stall rest. It's hard. You gotta toughen up, and I'll tell you, it didn't happen for me overnight. At the very beginning, it was very hard for me to deal with this stuff because I had to talk to the people, and I could see, looking from the outside looking in, I could see that there was problems. But because it was their horse, they couldn't see what was happening. I would have definitely encouraged another farrier, have them to look and have another farrier look at the feet, even have the vet come out. We've had that happen a few times over the years where the vet has actually come out and looked at the feet and then run x-rays to see what was going on. And then they all realized the feet had been cut too trimmed too short for the sole. So you really want to think about that. It's not easy and it's tough, but I'll tell you, once you do it and you have those tough conversations, it helps you grow as a barn owner. It helps you grow as a business person, and you get stronger. It's just not easy getting it out right away, but you got to do it, especially for the horse, especially if this is something that happens every single time the horse is trimmed. So that's my thoughts on it. Stop the madness and take ownership of it. Talk to them and say, we need to have a plan B here, because I'm not going to keep doing this every 8 weeks and giving the horse bute every single time when there's probably a different way to do it. And it could mean just having the feet trimmed a little differently. So that's my thoughts on that. Okay. The next question is, this one started out, I have a crazy problem. I have a boarder that wants to hang a radio in her horse's stall so the horse has music all night long, because we turn all the lights off and the radio is off at night. She said she read somewhere that music is soothing for the horse. What is your opinion of this, and have you ever had an issue with the radio at your barn? And I'm kind of chuckling as I'm reading this because I've had issues with the radio at our barn. So, hold on. Okay. So we have a radio in our barn. It's not in the arena, but it's just on the stall side. And people can go in and switch the music and listen to whatever they want. Or they can turn it off, whatever they want to do with it. So, I did have a person years ago came to our barn, and she saw that the radio was on. And she came up to me and she was upset because she said, she asked me, she goes, is the radio on at nighttime? And I said, no, we turned it off. And she says, oh, thank goodness. She goes, my horse, I don't want music on at night because I want him to be able to sleep. And I said, well, don't worry about that. And it was great because we don't keep the music on at night. Then I had a situation a few years later where I actually had a couple teenage girls who, they get to be around 16, 17, and they kind of know it all at that point. And they kind of want things to be loud and rambunctious, and they wanted music in the arena. And I don't have anything against music in the arena, we just don't have it in the arena. And basically the reason is because you're going to have young people, you're going to have older people, and I guarantee you, young people are going to listen to one type of music, older people are going to want to listen to another, and it's going to cause problems. And I just didn't even want to go there. So, and our arena is 80 by 200. I mean, in order for us to have music on in the arena, it would have to be loud. And we just said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to have speakers in there and have music in there. And some barns have it. We just don't, because I didn't want to deal with all that between people having different preferences of country music or this music and loud or soft, or, I knew that I was going to be dealing with people and there would be complaints. So I didn't want to do that. So yes, I've had people actually leave because they felt we had too many rules, and one of them actually was that they didn't like the fact that they couldn't have the music blaring in the arena. But back to your situation with the horses, I have never heard that the radio is soothing to horses. I personally look at horses differently. I think the barn can be busy with people coming and going all day long, and at nighttime it's their time to sleep. And I think God made them a certain way, and just they just like the natural sounds of horses. They hear all the horses around them, and that's what they're created to be. And so I don't believe, the music myself soothes them. But that's just my own personal opinion. I think that our horses sleep really quietly in our barn, and they are very, I feel like they get a good night's sleep, and they hear each other, and I think that to them is more comforting than a radio. But if you go on the internet, you're going to read all kinds of stuff, and you're going to hear everything. You can pick one subject, and I guarantee you'll be able to find something that goes with it that you agree with. So, I think as a barn owner, you have to decide what you're going to allow. And if you don't want the radio on in the stall, then you say, no, we don't allow that there. And, it sounds crazy and you can chuckle about it, but honestly, it's enough to make people upset. And you could lose a boarder over something like that. And if they leave, you got to let them leave. Because if that's really why they're boarding at your barn, is for that sole reason, and that's the one thing that upsets them enough that they're willing to leave because of a radio, then you don't want that type of person anyways. Life is too short to be dealing with all those headaches. So that's my thought. If you don't want the radio on at night and you have a lot of horses and you just want it quiet and peaceful once the lights are out and the barn is closed down, then just say we don't do that here. That is really kind of how I look at it. And, there are barns out there that have music going and barns that don't. And people will know what kind of barn you have. And it happens very rarely, but I have had music issues at our barn. So, okay. Let's see here. Here's one. Hi, Sherry. Thank you for doing the show. I'm having a problem with 2 boarders paying their board on time each month. They are usually about 5 or sometimes 10 days late. I'm scared to enforce a late fee that is in my boarding contract because I know it will upset them and they might leave. How do you deal with boarders that are chronically late with their board payment? It ends up making me late on my bills at times. I know I need to have a backbone, but I'm having a hard time getting one. Okay. First of all, you need to charge the late fee. If someone is going to leave your stable because you charge them a late fee because they're late for a bill that they need to pay for the care of their horse, you are not at fault at that. They are the ones at fault, and that tells me that they're not thinking about this correctly and that they need to move on. I have never lost a boarder from charging a late fee, and I've charged late fees. At the beginning, when we first opened, our contract had a 10-day grace period, and it was really stressing me out because I realized that I'd have a couple people that would pay on the 1st and a couple people that would pay in between. But I always had people that waited all the way to the 10th. And on the 10th is when our mortgage was due and everything was due way back then. And it was very stressful. And I also did as you. I did not charge a late fee because I was scared to. I was so nervous to, but I would go in the house. I would see these people out at the barn. They'd be buying new things. They'd be riding, but they still hadn't paid their board, and I would be storming up to the house, and I'd be really upset because I couldn't pay my bills on time, but life was going on for them, and I was really struggling, and we were really tight financially, and I had to wrap my head around all this and change how I did things. So we redid our boarding contract, and we made our late fee 5 days, our grace period 5 days, and the first time I had to charge a late fee, I felt sick to my stomach. I had texted the person and let them know that their board was late and to add this much on. And I was real nice about it and professional. But I was really seriously sick to my stomach about it. And I think they were in shock. And they paid the late fee, but they never left. And it's funny. One other person I did the same thing to, and after that, they were never late again. And I realized really quickly that when you charge a late fee and you follow through and you treat them with respect and you're nice to them, but you still charge the late fee, they'll pay it. And 9 times out of 10, they're never late again. because they don't want that late fee. So charge the late fee. Charge it. It's, you know, you're caring for their animal and you're doing it every day of the week through all types of weather, through all seasons. Whether you want to get up or not, you got to, because you got to feed the horses, get them outside, take care of everything. And you deserve to be paid on time. That is your paycheck. That is how you get paid. And you wouldn't go to another job and work there and you're supposed to get paid on the 1st and the 15th. And the 1st comes around and the owner says, well, I can't pay you on the 1st, I'll pay you on the 5th. That's not how jobs work. And so you have to remember that it's a business, it's a job, so you need to be paid on time. So charge the late fee. If they're going to get mad and leave, then let them leave. Let them give their 30-day notice and get a boarder in there that really appreciates what you do and will pay you on time. And people will do a 3-day late fee, a 5-day, a 10-day for a grace period, and then the late fee after that. You can do it however you want. I just felt 10 days was a little bit too long for me, so we backed ours down years ago to 5 days, and I was really happy with that. So that's my answer. Charge it, get a backbone. It's hard at first. You're going to feel sick to your stomach, but you'll get stronger with every time you do it. And just what I do is if someone's late, and so now it's the 6th, and they're late, then I shoot them a text or an email, and I just say, hey, just a reminder, your board is late, please add on. And I total out the amount for them so they know how much. So if it's 5%, like here in Wisconsin, most of the counties are 5%. If it's 5% late fee, then I total it out off the total of their board and put it on there so they don't have to figure it out themselves, because they may not even know how to do that. And then I just make sure that they have that included in their check. And then when I see them at the barn, I'm trying to be super nice to them and make them, because I know that they are probably feeling a little awkward when they see me, and I don't want it to be an awkward thing. So that's how I do it. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. Let's see. The next question is, and what time is it, Sherry?
It's 7 o'clock.
Okay. We are looking to build our dream barn and boarding stable, but the financing of all of it seems stressful because we have gone to 2 banks in our area and they don't want to mess with a horse stable to finance. Oh gosh, any suggestions are greatly appreciated. You know, I wrote a book, and I don't think I have it here. It's the very first book, and I can't even think of the name of it. I'm going to just look here real quick to see if it's here. Nope. I can't think of the first. I can't think of the name of my first book. Okay. Let me get back to you on that. My very first book I wrote, it's about how to start a horse business, how to do it right the first time. And it was our story of building our barn, and honestly, we went to like 6 banks, and I didn't even know what I was doing. We went and asked, about seeing how to get a loan for an agricultural loan. This was probably like 17 years ago, and people, I know they were looking at us like we didn't know what we were doing. And with every bank I went to, every place I talked to, I kind of learned a little bit until finally we went to an agricultural lender. And he worked with farms, with dairy barns and beef places and stuff like that. So he was willing to listen to us. And he asked us to write a business plan. And the business plan took me 9 months to write and figure out for finances. I did not know how to do a business plan. I'll be honest, I didn't know what a business plan was. And I had to learn all that. The whole process from beginning to end was like a 2-year process of getting the loan approved to build and all that good stuff. Some banks don't want to mess with it. I think the horse industry, there's a lot of barns that close down, they go out of business, and I think it's because the owners do not have a good grasp on what is going on with the money part of it, and they end up getting themselves upside down in debt, and it becomes a real mess. So I think that's one of the reasons banks don't like to touch them. I think you need to go to an agricultural lender. Definitely you need to have a business plan. When we first finally got approved, it was on the approval of a SBA loan, a small business loan. And with that particular loan, in order to get an SBA loan, which protects the bank, there's added fees. And gosh, this was a long time ago. I think we had to pay like $15,000 extra just to get the SBA loan. It was crazy. This was 16 years ago, and the interest rate was a little higher. I've been told now, years later, that the interest rate is lower for an SBA loan, and so you might want to check into that. But the bottom line is, with those types of loans, sometimes you need that to start off, to show the bank that you can run this business, because so many of them go out of business in the first couple of years. We were lucky. After a year and a half, we were able to fly on our own. We got out from under that SBA loan and got a regular bank loan, and the interest rate went down. Now, this fast forward to 2021, and the interest rates might be really low for an SBA loan. I'm not really sure what they are. This is what they were way back then. And so if you're going to go that route and you need that extra help or the protection of the SBA loan, try it. All I can tell you is to keep trying. Don't give up. Definitely get a business plan in place. If you're not sure how to do a business plan for an equine business, check out my book. I have one in here, a sample one. This will help you start to pull it all together on what you need for that type of loan. So it's just something to think about. It's not easy because honestly, a lot of people in banking don't understand the horse industry, and they just feel like it's just so much of a risk. And I think it's because so many barns, people build these $1 million facilities and then they lose money. Their overhead is way too high. They're not able to bring in the money. It's just such a risk. And then they try to sell the place and the place won't sell. And, so that's why you've just got to be really smart about it and start off smaller. You can always add on later on. We started off way too big, and we got ourselves into so much debt. If I had to do it over again, I would start off smaller. Do you have a question, Sherry? So that's my thought on banking. It's never pretty, and it's probably one of the most stressful parts of it, but you'll learn so much going through it. Okay. So, this question is, do you use anything on your indoor arena sand to keep the dust low in the winter time? So we are coming upon winter, and it's funny, we were told years ago to use kind of like solar salt to put it into the arena. We tried that, and this was 15 years ago, and I felt it made the sand more dusty. I know there's other products out there people use now. I don't know the names of them offhand, but people will use them to put in to keep the sand not so dusty. But honestly, we just buy a really good sand. It's a washed concrete or mason sand. I like a washed concrete sand, and we just don't have a problem with dust. I mean, we water every so often, not very often. I think my husband maybe watered last week or 2 weeks ago, but we water maybe once every couple months. And the only time the dust really gets bad is in the winter time, if it gets extremely cold, and I'm talking about down below 10 degrees in there, which then people aren't really riding anyways. But if that arena gets that cold, and the air just gets so dry, and everything is just like kind of frozen in time, then we tend to get dust. But as soon as you start getting moisture in the air again, then we just don't have a dust problem. And we do live in a state that there is a lot of moisture, usually, through spring, through fall. So if you buy a really good sand, then you don't have that problem. I did see someone on Facebook that was just putting sand, some kind of dust thing in their arena to put in for the sand. And I don't know how it works, but I think there's products out there. We just haven't used anything in so many years, and we just haven't had a problem. But I think it helps that we have a really good sand. Okay.
Question.
Uh-huh.
I recently purchased a home/farm, and the previous owners who ran a successful horse boarding business. I would like to pick up the business, especially since the barn stables are established. Where is the best place to start in the planning, since I already have the barn stables?
So they already bought it?
Yep.
Okay, you bought it, but the barn's already going.
The previous owners ran a successful horse boarding business.
So everything's in place.
Yep.
Okay. So you're going to continue on in the business, it sounds like.
Yes.
Okay. So congratulations, that's awesome. When you are buying a place that's already established, there's two parts to it. The part of it that's really, I hope that the previous owners took really good financial records, kept really good financial records of their expenses for every part of the business, because that will help you get an idea of what you've dived into and what the numbers look like. Sometimes with farming and with stables, the records aren't that clear. The expenses aren't, they haven't been done that well. So it's a shock to the new barn owner, because sometimes things are higher than what they thought. So I would start to, take all that apart and keep track of all your expenses per month to get an idea of how much revenue is coming in, how much is going out. There's that part of it. The other part of it is when you buy an established business and you're starting to go through it, you're going to start making changes. And making changes sometimes is difficult for boarders when they're used to something a certain way. And I always tell the barn owner when I'm working with them, and they have a new place, that it sometimes can take 6 months to go through some of this stuff, especially a bigger place and you have a lot of changes. You've got to figure out the money part of it. Is the board rate, will it work so that you're not in the negative every month? Is it a good price? Because the financial part of it could be different for you than it was for the previous owner, especially if maybe they had some of it paid off or they had it debt free. So you have to think of those expenses. And I guess what I could say is, I think this book will walk you through every single part of it, especially the business side of it, checklist on what to look for and how to make changes to the things you want to make that really will help you walk through every part of the business. And, I think you dive in and you take it one day at a time and you just start keeping track of what you want to do. It's the changes. I think our changes are hard for everybody when it comes to boarding stables, but just do it rightly. I would love to talk to you if you want to contact me in person. We can talk it through and keep track of some of the issues you might think could be potential issues or financial situations, and I'd help you through all that. But it's definitely worth going into and doing it right the first time. So keep track of everything you're doing and I guess above all else, take it slow. You don't have to rush in and change everything. The biggest thing is that you're not losing money. Usually when people buy a stable, and I've seen this quite a few times over the last like 4 or 5 years that I've been consulting, the numbers always aren't exactly, they don't always add up the same to what they've been told. So you really want to figure out all your financial numbers and see what areas you're making money in and what areas you're losing money in. And you got to remember your biggest expenses will be your hay, your bedding, labor is another huge one if you're going to have employees. And I guess it depends if you're going to do it full time. Is it a big barn? Is it a little barn? Those all are a big part of it. But congratulations. I'd love to talk to you more about it. It's definitely, there's a lot to think about, but once you get it organized and you get it rolling, it can roll like a really fine oiled machine. A barn that's run real well is really an enjoyment to run and operate, and that's where I want to get you guys. I just want to get you to that point. So is there any more on that, details on that?
She just commented that there's 6 stables.
6. Okay, so that's a smaller barn, which is perfect. That's a nice size. So it won't be, if you have 6 horses, then you're not going to be doing this as a sole support. I'm assuming you'll be working also. So I would break down all your expenses. If you watched, I believe it was last week where I had an itemized list of all the expenses to think about. It was last week's show, and it was the whole hour, and I broke down every single thing to think about as far as expenses, because it all adds up. And the idea is whether you're boarding 2 horses or you're boarding 40 horses, you don't want to lose money. You can make money either way. You just want to do it right. So if you can go back and watch last week's podcast from last Monday night, we broke down everything that I think is important to look at. And it could be something even as cutting the grass or plowing snow. That all takes fuel. If you have to pay someone to do it, it costs money. And you have to do it, especially if you have people, the public coming in. You have insurance. You have, you're going to have care, custody, and control insurance for those horses because they're in your care. You want to make sure you have that right. Is there an indoor arena? Is there trainers going to be there? All these little things to think about. So definitely contact me if you'd like to at probarnmanagement.com. Check out last Monday's podcast, and I think this book will also open your eyes to things. So thank you. It's a great question. Anything else? Okay. This one was, how many horses are in each of your herds? Do you mix herds? So we have, our big barn houses 27 horses, and our largest herd we've ever had is 6 horses in a herd. So I'm really a big believer and advocate of having more paddocks, smaller herds, instead of maybe 2 huge paddocks or pastures and 10, 15 horses in one and 10 or 15 in another. I like to do things smaller. I think it's more manageable. It's definitely easier when introducing new horses to a herd, and if horses don't get along, you have the flexibility of moving horses. It's much easier because you know what, there are going to be times when horses don't get along, and you know there are people out there that have that mentality of just let them kick it out, and I don't, because they're going to squeal and they're going to kick now and then. They're going to have a few little things. But if there's constant aggressive behavior constantly, day after day, there's going to be horses that get hurt. And I don't want that at my boarding stable, and my boarders don't want it. I sure wouldn't want it for my own horse. So I really like smaller herds. Like I said, our largest herd size is 6, and that's what we've done here, and it's worked great. With smaller herds and more paddocks, of course, that comes, you have to have automatic waters for everyone. Otherwise, you have tanks, and that means you have to fill all those up. So you have to look at how you're going to set those up if you're going to have, you want to make sure you're equipped for that many paddocks, because we have a lot of paddocks here. We have a lot of flexibility to move horses, because you could get horses, 2 dominant horses that just don't get along, and they're not going to leave each other alone, and you have to separate them. And if you don't have a place to put a horse, then you're going to have problems. So the other part of that is, do we mix herds? And we've always had a mixed herd here. We have right now so many geldings. We have very few mares, but actually my horses are a mixed herd. They always have been. And once in a while I have another group of horses that are a mixed herd. But honestly, I don't have a problem with it. It just depends on the actual horses. It depends on the geldings and how they act around mares. It really depends on the mares. Some mares are marish all the time, and some mares could care less about being with geldings. So it depends on both of them. And it just depends if they're going to go well together or not. Sometimes if you've had geldings that were breeding stallions before, they have a really hard time being around a mare, and if they were breeding for a few years. So there's a little bit that goes into it and the history of it, but it seems like I've always had one group on our property that's always been a mixed herd, and it has always worked out because I know the horses real well. And as long as they're not real dominant as far as maybe acting like a stallion or acting real marish, both sides of the extreme, usually it works out. So I don't have a problem with that. You might have a boarder that comes for a tour and they're completely against that, and that might make them nervous. And if you have a place to put their horse in a specific either male or female type herd, you can do that. But I haven't had a problem. I've been okay with people trusting me on that to see how it's going to work out. So that's my thought on that. Okay. So let's see here. Okay, I've got a few questions here. Okay, we'll start with this one. What time is it here?
It's 7:22.
Okay, we've got a few more questions here. Hop in if you have any. I don't know if I'll be able to get to all these. If I can't get to all of them, we'll finish them next week. Okay, I have a boarder who has seemed to change over the last few months. Our barn was perfect for her in the beginning, and she loved how we did things, and now she is asking for more bedding and hay in her horse's stall. We feed plenty of hay and her horses on rubber mats along with shavings. I feel like she is comparing our barn to other stables in the area, and I'm not sure how I should handle this. Have you ever had this happen to you? And thank you for taking my question. And yes, I have. I've had this. So first of all, we don't bed heavy in our stalls. The only time we bed heavy is for a medical situation. We have one horse right now that they pay for extra bedding because of medical situation, but other than that, we don't bed heavy. We have screenings and then rubber mats, and the horses do fine with just a little bit of bedding. But I have had people come where they come and they love the place, they love your facility, and everything's fine, and then about 6 months to a year later, you can kind of feel it and they're starting to change. And I had one person actually, she didn't like all of a sudden how we were doing the bedding, and she started asking some of the trainers that were coming here. These were traveling trainers that were traveling to other barns, and she was asking them what they thought of our bedding and how other barns bed. And I could tell she was fishing for stuff, and the only reason I found that out is because the trainers told me. And I can't control when someone's going to change what they want for their horse, but I can control how I do things at my barn. And if someone is going to all of a sudden have this different idea of what they feel is good horse care for their horse, and it doesn't line up to what we do at our barn, then the best thing for that person is to find a different facility. In that case with that person, they ended up leaving and moving to a different barn, and that was okay. You're going to find out real quick that you're going to have so many opinions, and you really can't please everybody. And I used to make myself kind of sick to my stomach and get worked up, because I thought, why would they come? They came here, they loved it. How did they change? Honestly, now I've kind of stopped trying to figure out people. They change. And I don't know if they talk to someone and they hear this, or they see something on the internet. I mean, there's all different thoughts. Some people have to have really heavy bedding. Some people plainly overfeed their horses way too much, and they just feel like their horse has to be eating all the time. Honestly, you can't control what people do and when they change on something. And all you can do is be nice to them, and if it's not a fit anymore, it's not a fit, and then it's time for them to go, and they'll move on. But I'm not going to have them stay at my barn and start asking the trainers and start getting other people on board and making people feel like the care is inadequate when a year ago it was perfect. It's just that at some point it becomes toxic. And when it becomes really toxic like that, I can't have that I'm not going to deal with that in my barn. I live here, I'm out here every day, and I know the horses are healthy and they're doing great. So at some point I have to say, okay, I think enough's enough. This person clearly is not happy. And that's what you're going to be dealing with. It sounds like that's what you're dealing with right now. If it's happening, sometimes it's okay to let someone go, because someone else will come that loves how you do things. Sometimes people just go through personal changes, whether it be maybe with their spouse or, other things happening in their life, health things, and then it kind of affects everything. I honestly can't tell you why it happens sometimes, but it does happen. I've had it happen to me, and when it does, they just, usually they leave because they need to find something they're looking for. The grass isn't always greener on the other side, because you go to a different barn because they may have the perfect bedding, but now something else isn't right, or you don't like the turnout situation. So there's those type of people that, sometimes they call them barn hoppers, or, they're just always looking for something. And you just have to go with it and do what's best for your barn and your business and your family first. And you can't please everybody, and don't try. You'll drive yourself nuts. So I hope that answers your question.
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Oh my gosh. Okay. I think we're about done then. We have a lot of other questions, and I'm so sorry I couldn't get to them all, but we will come back next Monday and answer the rest of them. If you have questions, please send them in to probarnmanagement.com. If you want me to keep you anonymous, I will. If you'd like to ask your questions while we're live, I'd love to talk about it if I can. If I don't know an answer, I'll try to find out. And thank you for joining us. I want to wish you a wonderful week, and God bless you, and we'll see you next Monday. Thank you.